Hello everyone, it's Maris Fanatic back with another YouTube video, and today we'll be going over my mock trades and players I think we should target over this offseason. But before I get into the video, let me know how the sound of this video is. I bought a new microphone and so I'm trying it out. So hopefully I can eliminate some of the sound issues that some of you might have been experiencing on past videos. Another thing to note, every player that I mention on the Mariners side that we will be trading away could be used in another deal. I just tried to have a wide variety of players and options that could happen, but a lot of the players that are in all of these deals could be put together in other deals for the same exact players, just depending on what that team exactly is looking for. The main focus is that these are players that I think we should be targeting, so focus more on that rather than who's included in the deal. So with that explanation out of the way, let's get into our first trade. I'll start off with the more likely trades, and as we go, I'll get into some of the more ambitious targets, or maybe some trades that won't happen, but I wish would happen. Starting off with our first trade, it is Drew Steckenrider for Richard Bleier. Drew Steckenrider is 30 years old. He's not a free agent until 2024, and Richard Bleier is 34 years old, and he is not a free agent until 2023. It may look like we're giving up some years of control. However, relievers are pretty volatile year to year. From what we've seen out of Bleier in the past, he's more consistent and reliable. He is also a left-handed pitcher and a ground ball pitcher, and it would be a good mix-up from some of the harder throwing arms in our bullpen. With Steckenrider, he definitely had a great season for us last year, but he's a piece we can use and move if we want to. Out of the relief pitchers, he probably holds one of the higher values, but he's also one of maybe the less needed, as we've got Diego Castillo, Ken Giles coming back, Andres Munoz. So there's definitely younger options with more firepower potential. And so getting a left-handed reliever in Bleier, who is a little bit more of a control pitcher, ground ball pitcher, and is obviously good against lefties, is pretty important. So this one's a pretty simple one-for-one deal, and given Bleier's age and years, we might even get a prospect out of it too, if we included somebody else in the deal on the way to Miami. Next up, the second trade on this list is one of Riley Adams or Trace Barrera of the Washington Nationals for Tom Murphy and Erik Swanson. Now, Riley Adams came over to the Nationals in a trade with the Blue Jays, and Trace Barrera has been there with them for a little bit. But also keep in mind that the Nationals traded for Keibert Ruiz and Josiah Gray of the Dodgers in the Max Scherzer and Trey Turner deal. Keibert Ruiz is probably going to be their number one catcher moving forward, with one of these guys backing them up. And it looks like they had 4 or even 5 catchers that are close to the big league level or on the big league roster. So the Nationals definitely have some depth there, and the Mariners, we definitely don't. It's pretty much Murphy and Cal Raleigh right now, with potentially Luis Torrens, although he's probably not going to catch very much. And then we've got a couple guys in the minors, but they're not really big prospect names. So going after one of these guys could be really useful, and we could also help the Nationals in their rebuild. Swanson is under team control until 2026, and Tom Murphy is under team control until 2024. Murphy, being a veteran catcher, could help that young Nationals rotation, whereas we get another young potential starting catcher in our lineup to pair with Cal Raleigh. And just to reiterate, we would only get one of these players. I'm not really sure who the Nationals would be more willing to get rid of, in a sense. I think they would probably want to give us Trace Barrera, as he's a couple years older, and Riley Adams hasn't met his rookie limits yet, so his free agency time clock hasn't even started yet. So most likely Trace Barrera, but there could be a push for Riley Adams if we sought that out. Moving on to trade number 3, and some of you may think this one's more realistic than others. I think it's fairly realistic. Would be Yusei Kikuchi, presuming he uses his player option. If he doesn't, that's just better for us anyways. But if he does, I see that Jerry could potentially flip him in a trade. So Yusei Kikuchi, Anthony Misevich, Jake Fraley, Taylor Dollard, and Jonathan Clase for Blake Snell and Tim Hill. Padres really screwed themselves over the last year and a half by trading away a lot of their farm pieces. This trade gives them back a couple farm pieces who have potential in Dollard and Clase, and then it gives them 3 MLB players. Yusei would only be for 1 year, most likely, and Misevich and Fraley both have some team control years left. Whereas on the flip side, Blake Snell still has a couple years left on his contract, and then Tim Hill as well has a couple years left. This would give them an option to dump some salary with Blake Snell. His contract's not huge, and they could definitely hold on to it if they wanted to, but they may decide why not get the value out of him now. Blake Snell had a rough first half of the season last year, but he had a great second half. I think in the first half he had almost a 6 ERA, and then by the end of the season he was down to low 4s. So Blake Snell's still a great pitcher, and so that's why I feel like we're giving up quite a few players, but I'm not sure if that's quite the value that the Padres would be looking for. I'm also not sure if they're wanting to trade off pieces like that. Kind of in limbo right now. They did just sign Bob Melvin as their manager, so that could mean they're still going for it, and then they wouldn't trade Snell or Hill. I think this would be a pretty good trade, and it's not that it's unrealistic. I just don't know where the Padres are at. Moving on to the fourth trade, we have Luis Castillo from the Reds, and we would be trading away Levi Stout, Juan Ten, and Dylan Moore. Luis Castillo is 28. He's a free agent in 2024, so we'd be getting 2 years of control for him. We would give them Levi Stout, who is a top 10 prospect in our system. Juan Ten is also a top 30 prospect in our system. Stout is 23, 10 is 21. There's a lot of potential with both pitchers. And then Dylan Moore is 29, but he has team control until 2025. He's a great utility player, obviously. Last year, unfortunately for us, he couldn't get the bat going. But he's got a lot of speed and some defensive flexibility. Like I said, similar to the Padres, I'm not really sure which direction the Reds are going to head in. If they're going to cut payroll and restart, or if they're going to make some moves and go after some players. So this is banking on them looking to retool their team and get some prospects. Castillo, like Snell, had a rough first half of the season, but really turned it on for the second half and finished with a pretty good year. So, like Snell, Castillo is a very solid pitcher. Both these guys have been wanting to go after for a while. We may even be light on that trade package, so you could see a fourth player in that deal or someone with a little bit higher prospect value. But overall, the main point is I've been wanting to target Luis Castillo for the past year and a half. So still holding out hope that we can get him. Probably not, but we'll see. The next trade on this list, we have AJ Minter or Tyler Matzek for Wyatt Mills and Caden Polkovich. Minter, I think, is the more likely of the two. However, he is younger than Matzek, so you never know. I don't know where the Braves are heading. Obviously, they're in the World Series, right? But they didn't have the best year. We'll kind of be able to tell what they're going to do if they re-sign Freddie Freeman and go after some more free agents in the offseason. But a lot of their legwork to get to the playoffs was done at the trade deadline. They were hurting for most of the season. But these two lefty bullpen arms have been a big part of their team over the last few months in their playoff push. And so I don't even know if they'd want to give them away, as both players are under team control and don't become free agents until 2025. The players we'd be sending over, Wyatt Mills, he's been kind of up and down with us the last year. Hasn't done a whole lot, but he's definitely got some potential and an interesting arm angle. I just don't know if there's a spot for him on our big league club, as our bullpen's pretty deep. So it'd be good to make use of his value. He was a top 30 prospect before he graduated off the list last year. And then Caden Polkovich is a top 30 prospect in our system. He's a 22-year-old middle infielder. Who knows how long Dansby Swanson will stick with the Braves. He could be there his whole career. But Polkovich, I could see as a pretty solid middle infield option in a couple years. So this would be a good pickup for them, I think. I'm going with that trade option there. Lefty bullpen arms are really key for us to target, whether through free agency or the trade market this year. So we need to find a way to get somebody, and I think both these guys could be viable candidates. Next up on the list, we have Jack Flaherty of the St. Louis Cardinals for Connor Phillips and Patrick Frick. Flaherty is a free agent in 2024, and then Phillips is 20 years old and Frick is 24. Frick has played well the past couple years and has been moving up in our system, but he's a little bit on the older side. Sending him to a team like the Cardinals, who don't have a lot of middle infield depth in their system, could be really useful for them and for us. Phillips is a top 10 prospect in our system and has a lot of potential. I think Seattle would be a great environment for Flaherty. He would fit right in with this team, and he's only 26 years old, but he is a free agent in 2024. So similar to Castillo and Snell, we'd be getting a couple years out of him. And this is a top of the rotation type of guy, which is something we definitely need. And the reason that this trade package is not filled with more prospects is because of the concern over his health. Last year, he didn't pitch very much. He had a couple different injuries. We'll see where Flaherty is at moving forward, if he's even on the market. But the Cardinals are always doing interesting trades, so this could be an option. Next up on the list, and this is kind of where it starts to get a little bit more unrealistic, but this would be a prospect trade. We would be looking for Nolan Gorman from the St. Louis Cardinals again. He's 21-year-old third base prospect. Now, he is a top 30 prospect in all of baseball, not just in their system, and had a great season last year. On our end, what we would be giving up in Zach DeLoach, who is a top 10 prospect in our system. He's a 23-year-old college outfielder who is only a year or two away from the big leagues. His bat is his biggest upside, solid defense as well. In my Untouchable Prospects video, he was on that list. However, if it's the right player, he's definitely a key piece that could be used. So I don't really want to give him up, but if he gets us somebody like Nolan Gorman, who could be our next third baseman, then it's definitely worth using and dealing from an area of strength, which is the outfield. And the reason that Gorman would be included in a trade is Nolan Arenado, unless he opts out of his deal, which I don't think is likely, he'll be in a Cardinals uniform for the next few years, and they're going to have to find another spot for Gorman, because nobody's going to play third base over Arenado. The other player in this deal is Starlin Aguilar on our end. He's a 17-year-old international signee who has a lot of potential. He is a third base prospect, and he would likely be ready to go by the time that Arenado's contract is up. So that's kind of the thinking I went with. We're taking away their third base option because they have a third baseman, and then we're giving them a future third base option for when Arenado is gone, potentially. Kind of unrealistic, and I don't know how often that prospect for prospect trades happen, especially a guy of Gorman's caliber who is a top 100 prospect. But, it's an interesting trade to think about. So on to the next one. Next trade on the list, and some of you may really like this one and some of you may not. But it's going to be Tyler Glasnow and Brandon Lowe of the Tampa Bay Rays for Justin Dunn, Evan White, Alberto Rodriguez, and Justice Sheffield. To be honest, I'm not even sure if our trade package would make this deal happen, but considering how well the Rays are at developing pitchers, Justin Dunn is already good. He just needs some fine-tuning, and then Justice Sheffield, they may be able to get him back on track. Evan White, they kind of need a first baseman. The opportunity to play every day or be in a platoon be really useful to him coming back from injury. They could even start him at AAA. But their first base options aren't really all that deep. So Evan White could be an option for them on a contract that's relatively cheap in terms of the Rays. They're always looking to cut payroll, so that definitely could be an option. And then Alberto Rodriguez is somebody who has been flying up our prospect rankings. He had a really good year last year, and this kid has a lot of potential. He's an outfielder, and he's 21 years old, so he's only a couple years away from the big leagues. I definitely see a scenario where we lose this trade somehow, if it were to happen, just because the Rays, they're the Rays, and somehow things always work out for them. Basically, on the Rays side of things, they'd be giving up Glasnow, who likely isn't even able to pitch next year, except maybe the 2022 playoffs, if we were to get to there. And then we'd have him for the 23 season until he becomes a free agent in 2024. Obviously, he's recovering from Tommy John. We're taking a bit of a risk, but we took that risk with Ken Giles, and we're going to see him in spring training and see how he's recovered and stuff. So this is a Jerry type of move, and so that's why it's maybe unrealistic, but I also have it on this list because I see it happen. And then, of course, Brandon Lowe would also be in this deal, because realistically, we'd only be getting 1 year of Glasnow, which is, for that player package, wouldn't be worth it, so there'd be something else in the deal. Brandon Lowe has a very team-friendly contract with the Rays. However, it's still money, and like I said, the Rays are the Rays, so they're going to find ways to improve their team while cutting payroll. Lau is 27. He would fill that second base need for us. He can also play a little bit of left field. They've seen him move around the infield at times as well. So Lau is a player who is very flexible. He's batted 1 through 4 in their lineup. Wherever they needed him, he's led off, and then he's also been that cleanup guy on offense, and then he's serviceable on defense with that position flexibility. I really, really like this trade. I just don't know the viability of it. Also, keeping in mind that Evan White also has his own injury issues, as well as Dunn and Sheffield over the past year. So this could be red flags for the Rays, and that's kind of the main reason why I don't see it happening. But overall, this is one of my favorite trades on the list. I just don't know if it's going to happen. Next trade on this list, and this one is very out of the box, probably not going to happen, but Josh Hader from the Brewers in exchange for Adam Mako, Isaiah Campbell, and Tyler Keenan. Josh Hader is a free agent in 2024, so we would be getting him for the 22 and 23 seasons. In return, we would be giving them Adam Mako, who is a top 15 prospect in our system. He's a lefty pitcher with a lot of potential, and the Brewers have been known to develop pitchers well, including one of our own that we traded to them in Freddie Peralta in that ill-fated Adam Lind trade back when Jerry first came here. Also going in this deal would be Isaiah Campbell. He was out most of the year last year with injury, but he's a very good pitcher from what we've seen from him so far. A lot of potential there. The main focus is these two guys, the two pitchers, that I see a lot of value in them. And then Tyler Keenan's a little bit more of a throw-in. He's still a top 30 prospect in our system, but he didn't have a great year last year. He's only 22, so he's still got some time to develop. He's a third baseman, corner infielder, but the Brewers, their first and third situation seems a little unclear heading into that future. Tyler Keenan definitely could be an option in a couple seasons, depending on how he develops. Hader is going to be making a lot of money in arbitration. He's been one of the best relievers in baseball over the last few years, and the Brewers aren't quite as money conscious as the Rays, but they're also usually looking to cut some payroll and save some money somewhere. So if they can get some players out of Hader, they might do it. I don't see this one as being realistic, but it's just kind of a dream shot in the dark. And then the same is true for this final trade on the list. We would be going back and trading for our old friend Ketel Marte for Kyle Lewis and Emerson Hancock. And some of you may be like, whoa. Lewis and Hancock? That is steep. If you look at Marte's contract, it's pretty generous. He wouldn't be a free agent until 2023, and then he has a couple team options. So there's a few years of team control left there. And let's face it, Ketel Marte is an all-star caliber player when he's healthy. He batted something crazy against lefties last year. I don't know, it was like almost 400 at one point. He's a great defender. He could fill in at second base or center field. There's a lot of position flexibility there in general. I've always loved Ketel Marte. I didn't really like trading him, so maybe we can get him back. On our end, giving up Lewis, to me, I love Kyle Lewis, but he's 26 with knee problems. He's too young to be having this many knee problems, and I just don't know how far those knees are going to take him. You could even say that this would be a bad deal for the Diamondbacks, because they could be getting a player who can't even play center field for them in the National League where there's no DH. So some Diamondbacks fans might say, no, I don't want to make that deal. But the main kicker in this deal is Emerson Hancock. Now, he has had his own arm issues over the past couple seasons, but at the end of the day, he's a top 100 prospect. He is really good from what we've seen from him. Ultimately, this deal is really out there, and I understand if a lot of people disagree with this one. I love Ketel Marte. I want him back, and I don't care how it gets done. So if Lewis and Hancock aren't in this deal, I want somebody else in the deal to get it done. So there you go, guys. Those are my 10 kind of mock trades and mock trade targets for players that I'm really looking at. As you can tell with how I've been framing a lot of these offseason videos, the main focus, frontline starting pitchers, left-handed relievers, and then a big bat. Go ahead and drop your mock trades or trade targets in the comments below, and let's talk about it. And expect some more videos from me in the future as the offseason gets going here in about a week and a half. It's going to start to get crazy. So with that said, I'll see you guys in the next video, and Mariners Fanatic out.